Before starting this evening's proceedings, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the custodians of this land, the Darug people. It is a great pleasure for me on behalf of the Whitlam Institute and the School of Economics and Finance at UWS to welcome you to the second session in our three-part series on getting to grips with the economy. A good few of you, I think, may have been here last time, and so it's a case of welcome back, and we're delighted to see you. This evening's forum follows a great start when Dr. David Gruen and Ross Gittins spoke last month. They were working on a big canvas, painting for us the picture of the major shifts and implications and developments in the global economy that precipitated the global financial crisis, and of course the implications for keeping the Australian economy afloat. Both presentations will be available very soon on our website at whitlam.org, where you can also access Dr. Gruen's presentation from the ABC online presentation of it. Tonight's forum tightens the lens considerably to take a closer look at the impact on Australian workers and households. Some issues will, I'm sure, be familiar to you, but others, I suspect, open whole new questions about prosperity, equity, and indeed the uncharted waters ahead.
So let's start. The first speaker that we have tonight is Professor Raja Junankar. In brief, look, Raja is an international expert on labour markets, on macroeconomic policy and on migration policy. Thanks very much, Raja, and please come and address us.
Thank you very much, folks. Good to see you here. My topic is to look at the impact of the global recession on households and people in the economy. I've entitled my talk, Victims of the Recession, and I'll try and go through some of the broad topics to give you an idea of the impact the recession is likely to have on us over the next few years. Global financial crisis, which started in our wonderful United States, has, of course, moved across to all the other countries in the world, and it's now become a global economic recession. And interestingly enough, Australia has done a lot better than many other countries in the OECD. And you might hear some people say that we see green shoots and we are out of the system and everything's going to be wonderful in the state of Australia. I think my view is things are still going to get worse, as we've just started and things will be getting much worse for at least a couple of years. In my view, certainly, the government's stimulus packages, which Malcolm Turnbull tends to criticise and complain about, have actually done pretty well in trying to stimulate people's confidence, whether it's consumer confidence or business confidence. And as a result, we haven't gone down as deeply into recession as some of the other OECD economies. If you read the newspapers, which I hope some of you do, you'll find that the first homeowners grant has clearly helped the housing market in Australia. And unlike the United States, where housing prices went down by about 30%, in Australia, the housing prices have gone down by a very small amount. So I think what the sort of policies the government has followed and is following at the moment, I think are exactly the right things to have been done. They are actually helping to slow down the impact of the recession. I don't think it means we won't have a recession. And Australia is surprisingly strong. It managed to do quite well during the Asian financial crisis, and I think we've done well again. So I think there's something about our economic system which is pretty strong and resilient. What I'll do is talk a little bit about the labour market and sort of walk my way through what happens during a recession. What happens in a recession typically is, firstly, what the firms do is they stop hiring new workers. And that, of course, means all the people who are trying to find new jobs find it takes longer to get a job and they'll be unemployed for a lot longer. They put people who are working on full-time work on part-time work. So you find lots of people would like to work longer hours, but in fact they're forced to work on a part-time basis. And many part-time workers also then find their hours of work cut. They sort of go through this slowly. Typically in a recession it takes some time before firms go to the stage of actually laying off workers or making workers redundant. And that's partly the reason you'll find that unemployment hasn't increased very much in the last few months, even though the recession in some sense already started a few months back, 6 months back. If the firm goes bankrupt, of course, then all the workers in that firm will have to find new jobs or look for new jobs. When a firm goes into bankruptcy or closes down, this is going to be sort of picturesque kind of story. The building starts to fall into disrepair. The machinery is left to rust and depreciate. Workers are made redundant. But the plant and equipment of a firm can usually be sold off to someone else. And quite often what happens during a recession is some of the plant and equipment gets sold to third world countries, or it can be recycled. So machinery can be allowed to rot or rust or get sold or get recycled somewhere. And these are inanimate objects. However, when you have workers who are made redundant, something similar is happening to them as well. Workers also rust, in quotes, in the sense that their skills depreciate. They become less good at the kinds of things they used to do. And the longer they've been unemployed, the less employable they become in the future. But unlike machines, you can scrap them, you can throw them on the scrap heap. Poor workers, of course, think. And because they think, you can't just throw them on a scrap heap. They get upset, they get dejected. And some of them might fall ill. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that unemployed workers are more likely to have mental illness and sometimes perhaps physical illness, more so than the rest of the population. Unemployed people, of course, find their income drops, the household income drops. And this might lead to problems in the household. And you might have arguments taking place between the spouse and the unemployed worker. The children of the unemployed people find that they now cannot go out as often as they'd like, or they can't go and buy all the things that their parents used to buy for them earlier on. Family life essentially gets very difficult. And again, there's a literature which tries to look at the social impact on families of unemployment. I already mentioned the fact that unemployed people are likely to have mental problems. Some of them get depression of various sorts, and some of them might even go to the stage of trying to commit suicide. The costs of unemployment then are significant, and they're long-term. That is, the impact of this recession will last for several years, not just for the 12 months or 6 months or whatever. What I'll do for the next part is to look at some of the evidence from the previous recession, the 1980s recession and the 1990s recession. If you look at the recession of the early 1980s and the early 1990s, we see that in terms of gross domestic product, the growth rate that most people look at is if it's negative for 2 quarters, some people call that a recession. The recession was pretty short in the 1980s. It was deeper, but it didn't last very long, whereas the 1990s recession lasted a little bit longer. And I'll show you some graphs to illustrate that in a minute. Typically what happens in a recession is that gross domestic product or output falls. It takes at least 6 to 12 months before the impact on the labor market starts showing. And about 12 months later, you'll start finding that unemployment starts climbing up significantly. For the 1982 recession, it takes men something like 6 years before the unemployment rate goes back to its previous pre-recession level. So unemployment goes up very quickly and comes down very slowly. I was told a phrase by someone else, unemployment goes up in a lift and it comes down by the back stairs very, very slowly.